Single dad pulled the CEO from the tracks. She never expected he'd be holding a $100 solution. Every night the trains run smoother, and no one ever asks why. The first scream was faint, just a flicker of panic drowned by the screech of steel and the hum of fluorescent lights. Then came the second, louder, sharper, real. Alex Carter dropped his wrench and ran. He didn't hesitate, not even to radio dispatch. His boots hit the platform like thunder as he sprinted toward the edge of the eastbound tunnel. The echo bounced back at him. Help. There, barely visible in the flickering gloom, was a woman. Slumped against the yellow line, one heel missing her breath quick and shallow. The next train was 4 minutes out. He didn't need the schedule to know that. He could feel it in his bones the way the air shifted when the tunnel started to breathe. Alex jumped down onto the tracks. His knees jarred on the gravel, but he didn't stop. He ducked low arms wrapping under the woman's shoulders, lifting her with practiced care. Her blazer was sharp-lined, expensive, definitely not a regular on this platform. She stirred. No. Wait. No time, he muttered more to himself than her. With a grunt, he hoisted her over his shoulder and climbed, fingers scraping rusted steel. A second later, the tunnel wind changed, sharp and sudden. Headlights pierced the curve behind him. He threw them both over the ledge and rolled. The train roared past inches from his boots. Silence followed, except for her soft gasp against his chest. He sat up slowly, chest heaving. The woman, still dazed, blinked at him. Her eyes were sharp beneath the exhaustion, the kind that once commanded rooms and had forgotten how to ask for help. Alex stood. "You okay?" She nodded, slowly. "I think so. You passed out near the edge. You remember what happened?" A pause. Stress. I hadn't eaten. Maybe I forgot to breathe. Alex studied her for a second, then offered a calloused hand. "You're lucky. This platform doesn't get much traffic. Just me and ghosts." She took his hand. Her grip was cool but steady. "Who are you, maintenance? Night shift?" She squinted. "You don't talk like a night shift guy." He shrugged. "Guess I mop like a talkative one." Then a smaller voice piped up behind him. "Dad." A boy, maybe 8, stood on the platform steps holding a paper bag and a juice box. His shoes were too big, his eyes too old. Alex turned. "Leo." "What did I say about waiting in the booth?" "You took too long," Leo said, marching over, "and she looked like she needed you." The woman blinked. "This is your son?" "Yup. Best supervisor I ever had." Leo smiled, then held out the paper bag to her. "You look hungry." She hesitated. "He's serious," Alex added. "Don't refuse unless you want a lecture on shared resources." The woman took the bag gently. "Thank you." Leo beamed. "You're welcome. Dad says people break when nobody notices. So we try to notice." She paused. "That's a good philosophy." "Better than most corporate mission statements," Alex muttered. The woman looked at him more closely now. Not just a glance, really looked. His boots were worn, his jacket stitched where zippers had died, but his posture solid, his voice measured. Not a man resigned to invisibility. A man who carried it like armor. She opened the bag, inside a sandwich wrapped in napkin and a folded sheet of paper covered in sketches. She unfolded it. "Is this?" Leo nodded proudly. "It's Dad's train system, his better version. Less breakdowns, more safe stops." I colored the lines. Alex coughed. "That wasn't meant to be." She cut him off. "This is a transit redesign." "An old one," he said. "Don't worry, it's just leftover thinking, nothing real." She looked at him again. Something flickered in her eyes. "You never answered my question." "Which one?" "Who are you really?" Alex hesitated. "Then I used to be someone. Now I'm someone's dad. And that's the part I kept." A long silence. Then the woman extended her hand. "Evelyn Park." Alex took it. Alex Carter. Her grip held longer this time. Evelyn stood, brushed the dust from her pants, adjusted her hair, then bent slightly toward Leo. "Leo, would it be all right if I borrowed this drawing just for tonight?" Leo looked at Alex. Alex nodded. "Sure. Just don't sell it for $1 billion without cutting him in." "I don't do things halfway," she said. Then she turned, heels clicking against the concrete, a woman restored by humility and something else. Before she disappeared up the stairs, she said one last thing. "Thank you, Alex, for noticing." He stood there watching. Leo tugged at his sleeve. Was she famous? Alex didn't answer, but inside, something shifted. Not hope he wasn't naive, but maybe recognition. Just a sliver. Later that night, after Leo had fallen asleep with a Lego train in one hand and a flashlight still glowing beneath his blanket, Alex sat at the small table in their apartment. The sandwich bag still lay on the counter. The splotches of mustard, the crumbs, the smell of rust still on his shirt. He looked at the second blueprint, his real one. Not the crayon version, the one he'd buried beneath years of doubt and quiet survival. He unfolded it, and for the first time in a long time didn't put it away again. Just let it sit there, in the open, waiting. She fell before the train came, and the man who saved her wasn't supposed to be there. The meeting had ended 38 minutes late, and Evelyn Park could still feel the weight of every disappointed face pressed into her spine. Men in custom-tailored suits had spoken in circles, their smiles weaponized their silences worse. Another vote had been postponed. Another merger clawed at the gates. By the time she left the skyscraper, dusk had dissolved into darkness. Her driver had already left. She'd sent him home hours ago out of spite or pride. Maybe both. She needed air, not chauffeurs. She took the subway, down past the perfume of tourists and the decay of a city in motion, down to a platform where half the bulbs had given up and the schedule screen blinked like a tired eye. Her heels snapped as she stepped off the escalator. She cursed, bent down to adjust it, and when she straightened just like that, the world spun. No warning, no grace. The sound of her own breath felt far away. The tunnel lights flickered. Her knees gave way, and everything went sideways. Then arms, warm, strong, calloused. A voice, low, calm, steady, cut through the black. "I've got you. You're okay." Not the voice of someone surprised. She remembered falling, but not hitting the ground. Now she was in a metal chair back against a cold column paper cup pressed into her hand. "Drink, slowly." She sipped. Water, maybe. Her brain stuttered back into gear. "I fainted." "Yeah, you caught me." "More or less." She looked up, and there he was. The man from last night. The janitor. Alex. He was kneeling again, not like someone below her, but like someone anchoring her to something real. "I didn't expect to see you again," she said, voice hoarse. He smiled barely. "Story of my life." Evelyn forced herself to sit straighter. Her blazer was rumpled. Her pride more so. "You work all the stations, no. Just this line. Nights only." She nodded. "Convenient. I try to be." Another silence stretched. It should have been awkward, but somehow it wasn't. "Why were you here?" she asked. Alex leaned back on his heels, replacing a faulty pressure sensor on track 4, the kind that glitches right before something expensive breaks. "You know how to fix that, I built it." She stared. "You built?" "The sensor. The original model. Back when I used to wear ties and believe in titles." Something sharp flickered behind her eyes. "Why'd you stop?" He shrugged. "Titles don't raise kids. Jobs do. I picked the one that let me show up." Evelyn looked away. The truth of it sat heavy between them. "I wasn't always this person either," she said quietly. He didn't reply. Just waited. "I used to be an architect, not of buildings, of systems, logistics. I saw patterns in motion the way other people see skylines. Then I stepped over too many bodies on my way up, and suddenly I was the woman in the room, not the one who remembered how it was built." Alex tilted his head. "That sounds lonely." "It is." You hide it well." She glanced at him. "Do I?" Alex didn't answer. He just stood and offered his hand again. Not because she was weak, but because he saw she might need a second chance to stand without pretending. She took it. As they walked toward the exit, her limp was barely visible. But he noticed. Still dizzy, no. Just thinking. Dangerous habit. "Do you do this with everyone?" she asked. "Save them and then disappear. Only the ones who don't expect it." "Why me?" He stopped. "You fell." She looked at him, waiting for more. And she pressed. "You didn't scream like someone afraid to fall. You fell like someone used to doing it alone." The words hit harder than she expected. They kept walking. The street above was nearly empty. Just the hum of late-night delivery trucks and flickering neon reflected in puddles. At the top of the stairs, she paused. "I kept your son's drawing," she said. "I figured. I couldn't stop thinking about it. It's a good drawing." "It's more than that." She opened her bag and pulled it out. The creases were sharper now, like she'd studied it more than once. This is a functional schematic overlaid on a real-time commuter logic tree. It's what our team's been trying to model for 6 months. Alex didn't flinch. "I know. I showed it to my lead strategist. He said it looked like a kid's fantasy." Alex smirked. He's not wrong. But it's also correct. He raised an eyebrow. "So what now?" "I want to talk," she said. "You're already doing that. I mean, tomorrow. Or the next day. Somewhere above ground. You want to have a meeting. I want to understand who you are. And why someone like you is working underground when your mind is clearly anywhere but." Alex studied her. "What would someone like me be doing in your world?" She paused, then said softly, "Designing it." Another silence. Another shift. Finally, Alex nodded. "One conversation. But I pick the spot." "Deal." She turned to go, then looked back. "You never told me what you used to do." He smiled, tired but proud. "I used to build cities that didn't break." And now he looked past her toward the streetlight flickering above the platform steps. "Now I keep them from collapsing while no one's looking." And with that, he turned and disappeared down the stairs. Evelyn stood there for a long time. Not because she was stunned, but because for the first time in years she had just met someone who didn't want anything from her, except maybe the truth. And she wasn't sure if that made her more afraid or more alive. "This drawing doesn't belong in a notebook. It belongs under the city." The cafe smelled like old wood, burnt cinnamon, and too many second chances. It was tucked between a pawn shop and a boarded-up bookstore, the kind of place where time slowed just enough to let people remember themselves. Evelyn sat in the far booth, tapping the rim of a chipped coffee mug. Her blazer hung over the seat beside her, a quiet concession to being off-duty, if only in appearance. The door opened. Alex Carter stepped in, shoulders squared like someone used to stepping into rooms that didn't expect him. He wore a clean flannel shirt, jeans with honest wear, and a tired expression that hadn't decided whether it still believed in optimism. "You found it," Evelyn said as he slid into the seat across from her. "You said somewhere above ground. This place has windows. That's a win." The server poured 2 refills without asking. Alex took a sip, then looked at her. "You don't seem like the type to haunt cafes with peeling paint. You don't seem like the type to design transit systems in pencil." He gave a half smile. "Touché." She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. Thick, worn at the corners. "This is everything my team has been working on for 9 months. Traffic flow signal syncing, predictive maintenance AI. We're still stuck. You sketched something with crayons that fixed 3 of our 4 bottlenecks." Alex didn't touch the folder, just looked at it. "I used to think ideas were like keys," he said slowly. "You find the right one, the door opens. But in the real world, people don't even know there's a door." Evelyn studied him. "You want to know what I see when I look at you? I already know what people see." "I didn't say people. I said I." That caught him off guard. She leaned in. I see a man who still watches the floor when he walks, like he's trying not to be noticed, but also someone who leaves behind blueprints instead of footprints. Alex didn't respond right away. I was an engineer once, he finally said. Not on paper. In life. Worked on the early design for San Mateo's smart loop system. Got my name on the prototype. Lost it on the patent. What happened? Funding dried up. So did my wife's health. I walked away from a job that called itself a calling and into a hospital room where time ran out faster than medicine. Evelyn's voice softened. You took care of her. Until the end. And then I took care of Leo. That became the only thing that still made sense. She let the silence stretch, careful not to fill it with sympathy. Only space. Then, almost gently, Do you miss it, the work, every day? Alex said. But I missed Leo more. He was 4. He didn't ask for a genius. He asked for grilled cheese and someone who could spell dinosaurs backwards. That made her smile. Not a polite one, a real one. You know, she said we talk a lot in my world about impact, disruption, innovation. But we forget that the most lasting systems are the ones that go unnoticed. The train that doesn't derail, the bridge that doesn't fall, the father who stays. Alex raised an eyebrow. Is that what you think I am, infrastructure? No, she said softly. Foundation. He looked away, a little shaken. I didn't come here for validation, he murmured. I didn't offer it, she replied. I offered a conversation. He let that sit for a moment. Then, so what do you want from me? I want to bring you into the room. Which room? The one where your designs belong. He leaned back, eyes narrowing. You think the board's going to listen to a guy who smells like oil and still sketches on napkins? She didn't blink. I think they'll listen when the numbers back him up. And if they don't, then I'm prepared to take that risk. Alex stared at her. Finally he said, Why? Evelyn paused, then answered the question he didn't say out loud. Because I know what it feels like to be erased from something you built. He didn't expect that. My mother. She continued. She was a data architect. Designed the structure behind 3 of the systems I use today. You won't find her name on any of them. Why? Because she was the woman in the room, and the men in the room were louder. Alex exhaled, slow and heavy. And you built your empire to make sure it never happened again. No, she said. I built it to convince myself I was more than what they tried to shrink her into. I forgot along the way. He looked at her now, really looked. You don't seem like someone who forgets. She gave a rueful smile. You don't seem like someone who forgives. That silence again, not cold, not awkward, just honest. Then Leo's drawing came back out. Evelyn unfolded it, smoothing it gently like something sacred. You know what I see when I look at this? She asked. He shook his head. A city that remembers who it's for. Alex didn't speak. She folded it back up slower this time. I want to show this to the team, she said. Not just the engineers, the whole damn board. Why? Because genius deserves a seat, not just a glance. And because maybe, just maybe, reminding a city who built it is how we save it. Alex looked down at the table. His hand rested on the coffee cup. You know the funny thing about blueprints, he said quietly. They don't tell you how long it took to draw them, only whether they were followed. Evelyn stood. So let's follow one. Together. She didn't offer a handshake. She offered belief, and that was rarer. Alex nodded once. Not a yes, but not a no. As he stood, Evelyn added, I'll see you Thursday. Observer seat, conference room B. I'm not good in rooms full of suits. You're not there to wear one, she said. You're there to remind them that buildings don't stand because of polish. They stand because of precision. And with that, she left. Alex watched her go. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was being left behind. He felt invited. He reached into his satchel, pulled out his own copy of the drawing, creased faded ink bleeding at the edges, and smiled. Just a little. You're not just fixing machines. You're fixing the silence that broke them. The sun hadn't yet risen when Alex heard the knock. It was too polite to be a neighbor, too persistent to be a mistake. He opened the door in sweatpants and a worn-out t-shirt with a faded MIT Robotics Club logo barely visible across the chest. Evelyn Park stood in the hallway holding 2 paper cups and a manila envelope tucked under her arm. "I didn't know what kind of coffee you drink," she said, so I guessed bitterness with a touch of realism. Alex blinked. "You tracked down my address for this, no? I tracked down your address because there's a meeting in 24 hours that might decide the fate of an entire transit initiative, and I need the only person who understands the system better than the people who built it." He took the coffee, sipped, winced. God, that's awful. Like I said, realism. Alex motioned toward the small kitchen table. "It's not exactly a conference room. I've had worse meetings. At least this place doesn't smell like fear and furniture polish." She opened the envelope, laying out a schematic. It wasn't his, it was theirs. "My team tried to reverse engineer your sketch," she said. "They didn't get far, not because they're incompetent, but because your design thinks like a person, not a product. That's because it was never meant to sell." Alex said, sitting. "It was meant to survive." Evelyn studied him for a long moment. "Be in conference room B. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. Observer seat. No name on the agenda, but your work will be on the screen." He leaned back. "I don't need to be in the room. That wasn't a question. I don't play well with people who care more about titles than truth. Then you'll fit in perfectly. Because half the people in that room are too scared to admit they're wrong, and the other half are praying someone like you proves them right." Alex didn't speak for a beat. Then quietly, "What if I freeze up?" "You won't. And if I do?" Evelyn smiled just a flicker. "Then I'll be the one who keeps the silence from getting too loud." He glanced at the envelope. "You really believe this will change anything I believe in, starting where it hurts," she said. "And right now, the system hurts because we keep trying to fix it from the top down. You, Alex, you fixed it from the ground up." He looked at her now, not guarded, not skeptical, just tired of hiding the truth under modesty. "I haven't worn a blazer in 6 years." "Don't. Come as you are. They'll recognize substance even if they miss the polish." He gave a half smile. "You sure about that?" "I'm not in the business of being sure anymore. I'm in the business of making sure people like you get heard." Another pause. Then Evelyn stood. "I should go. You've got approximately 15 hours to figure out what part of your brilliance you're willing to show them." He walked her to the door. As she turned the knob, she stopped, looked back. "There's one more reason I came," she said. "To ruin my morning peace, to return something." She pulled a folded piece of paper from her coat pocket, the original crayon drawing. "Leo's. I laminated it," she said. "It reminded me why I started this company in the first place." Alex took it carefully. His fingers lingered on the creases. "Leo will be happy. He said you'd keep it safe." "I did." Then, softer. "Tell him I said thank you for helping me see a system worth saving." And she left. That evening, Alex sat on the floor beside Leo's bed, watching his son draw spirals in the air with a glow-in-the-dark wand they got from the dollar store. "You nervous?" Leo asked without looking up. "Maybe a little," Alex replied. "Are you going to wear your serious voice?" Alex chuckled. "Probably." "Don't. You sound better when you talk like you're building a spaceship out of pancakes." There was a pause. Then Leo added, "Are they going to be mean?" Alex considered that. Maybe. Not on purpose. But sometimes people get scared when they see something they didn't expect, like a mop that turns into a magic wand. Exactly like that. Leo rolled over and stared at him. "Are you scared?" Dad Alex hesitated. I'm scared they'll look at me and only see the janitor." Leo nodded solemnly, then reached under his pillow and pulled out something folded. It was a small index card. He handed it over. Alex unfolded it. In neat, careful block letters it read, "My dad is the guy who fixes things nobody else knows are broken. Please listen." He stared at it, heart clenching. Leo whispered, "I thought maybe you could keep it in your pocket. You know, in case you forget." Alex leaned down and kissed his son's forehead. "I won't forget." "You promise, I promise." The next morning, Alex stood outside Conference Room B wearing the cleanest shirt he owned and Leo's note tucked over his heart. Inside, voices buzzed low-controlled, anxious. Evelyn spotted him through the glass and opened the door. He stepped in. It didn't feel like walking into enemy territory. It felt like walking into a world that had forgotten it needed fixing, and maybe, just maybe, he'd remembered how. "Gentlemen," Evelyn said, calm and clear, "this is Alex Carter. He's here to observe. Nothing more." A man in a Navy suit scoffed. "We're letting maintenance sit in on strategic oversight." Evelyn didn't flinch. "No," she said, "we're letting insight sit in." And just like that, the room shifted. Not because it welcomed him, but because it realized someone had arrived who could see through the walls. And for the first time in years, Alex didn't feel small. He felt seen. Everyone in this room has a seat except the only man who's ever ridden the last train home. The walls of Conference Room B were made of glass and tension. 12 executives, 4 engineers, and a legal advisor sat at a long white table so polished it reflected doubt more clearly than light. At the head of the table, Evelyn Park clicked through a digital presentation slide after slide of system failures, proposed fixes, and budget overruns. Alex Carter sat silently in the corner. No title, no placard, just the janitor in the clean shirt holding a folded note from his son, and the kind of calm that didn't come from confidence, but from survival. Evelyn spoke with precision, controlled, sharp. "This is where our algorithm is failing," she said, pointing to a color-coded heat map of commuter flow. "We've optimized the wrong behavior because we're modeling a system based on static prediction, not human movement." She tapped again. "And this is the proposed correction." Alex's schematic appeared on screen. Not the crayon version. The real one. Rendered. Simulated. Functional. For a beat, no one said anything. Then Jason Whitmore, head of engineering, Stanford MBA, spine made of stainless steel, cleared his throat. Where did this come from? Evelyn didn't miss a beat. From someone who saw what we didn't. Jason squinted. A consultant. She paused. A night technician. Murmurs broke out around the table. "You're telling me this was drafted by someone with no formal engineering position?" "He has a degree in solutions," Evelyn said flatly, "and we'd be wise to learn from him." Jason leaned forward, voice measured. "Evelyn, I say this with respect, optics matter. We're a billion-dollar infrastructure firm. If this gets out and the media finds out that our systems were corrected by a janitor, they'll finally have something worth printing a voice cut in." It was Alex. The room stilled. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't stood. But the words hit like steel under velvet. Jason turned. "I'm sorry. What was that?" Alex set his coffee down calmly. "I said, if the math works and the trains run smoother, maybe the public deserves to know it wasn't done by the people who let them break in the first place." Evelyn didn't interfere. She watched. Jason's smile tightened. "You think a few scribbles and a hunch make you qualified to be in this room?" "No," Alex said. "But I think 20 years of watching systems break while no one noticed does." He stood. His hands were open, empty. His voice clear. "You sit here with your titles and your data sets. But I'm the one who hears the track hum before it cracks. I'm the one who watches passengers shift from foot to foot when a train is 7 seconds late. I don't have your algorithms. I have patterns. Human ones. And you know what I've learned?" No one answered. Alex looked straight at Jason. That a system built by people who never write it will always fail the people who do. Silence. Then Evelyn spoke softly but with iron beneath. Run the simulation. Jason hesitated. It's untested, run it. He sighed. A few keystrokes later the monitor flickered. The new model loaded. Traffic flow rebalanced. Wait times dropped. Latency dropped. Projected accidents 0. Evelyn looked around the room. This, she said, is not about optics. It's about outcome. Jason leaned back, arms crossed. He got lucky. Alex didn't flinch. Maybe. But if you only listen to people with perfect resumes, you'll never hear from the ones who've bled for the problem. Another silence. This one. Different. Respect lived inside it. The meeting adjourned 15 minutes later with reluctant nods and uneasy handshakes. Evelyn walked beside Alex toward the elevator. "You handled yourself well," she said. "I wasn't trying to. That's why it worked." He glanced sideways. "You didn't step in. You didn't need me to." He pressed the button. The elevator doors slid open. Inside, Evelyn exhaled. "You shook the room." Alex chuckled. "I didn't say anything special." "No, she said you said something true." The elevator doors closed. Down they went, 12 floors of silence. Then Alex asked, "Do you always talk like you're testifying under oath?" Evelyn smiled faintly. "Only when I'm trying not to show how much I care." He looked at her, studied her posture, the folded hands, the clenched jaw. "You manage fear well. I repackage it into deliverables." They both laughed quietly, softly, the way people laugh when they haven't for a long time. As the doors opened to the lobby, she paused. "Alex." "Yeah." "What you did back there. It reminded me of something." "What's that?" She met his eyes. That the truth doesn't need credentials. It just needs a voice brave enough to say it in a room that forgot how to listen. He stepped out. Then, maybe next time, he said, "We bring more chairs." That night, in their tiny apartment, Leo sat cross-legged on the floor, drawing new train lines across his sketchpad. "How was the meeting?" he asked. Alex ruffled his son's hair. "Crowded. Bright. Some people liked what I said. Some didn't." Leo didn't look up. "Did you tell them the system's only as strong as the people it ignores?" Alex blinked. "Where'd you hear that?" "You said it. In your sleep." "Last week." Alex smiled. "Well, it must have been true then." Leo handed him a fresh drawing. It showed a city glowing at night, a train flying above it. In the corner, 3 stick figures stood on a bridge. Dad, Evelyn, me. Underneath, the people who noticed. Alex stared at it for a long time, then taped it to the fridge right next to the electric bill. Some things belonged where they could be seen. And remembered. You're not the man who quit, you're the man who paused, so someone else could breathe. The sky had the color of worn denim when Evelyn knocked on the door. She stood outside Alex's apartment building, dressed down in jeans and a sweatshirt that said, "Truth over comfort." No entourage, no driver. Just her a coffee carrier in one hand and a folded piece of paper in the other. Leo opened the door. No hesitation, no fear. Just a 7-year-old in dinosaur pajamas and unmatched socks blinking at her like she'd just stepped out of a movie. "You're Evelyn," he said matter-of-factly. "That obvious. You have the look." "What look?" "The look of someone who talks to grown-ups too much?" Evelyn laughed. "Guilty." He stepped aside. "We're making pancakes. Dad said no company, but I told him sometimes exceptions are the start of something new." She blinked. "That's a very convincing argument. I learned it from him." Inside, the apartment smelled like cinnamon and resilience. The furniture was second-hand, but the warmth was original. Books were stacked in clusters, technical manuals beside bedtime storybooks. And taped to the fridge, Evelyn noticed, was a drawing. 3 stick figures, a bridge, a glowing train overhead. Underneath, the people who noticed. She stared at it longer than she meant to. Alex appeared in the doorway, spatula in one hand, surprise in his eyes. "I wasn't expecting you," he said. "I was in the neighborhood," she lied. He arched an eyebrow. She held up the coffee. "Bribery. I come bearing peace offerings." He took it, sipped. Still black with a hint of control. She smiled. "Some things don't change." Leo tugged at her sleeve. "Want to see what I'm building?" "Absolutely." He led her to the living room floor where a city made of Legos stretched from rug to coffee table. It's called Leo City. The trains never crash, the lights never break, and every person gets a backup flashlight just in case. Evelyn knelt beside him. "I like it already. There's even a rule here," Leo added, holding up a tiny Lego sign. "No one gets forgotten." Evelyn's voice caught for a second. Alex watched from the doorway. "She built her city like that too," he said quietly. "Your wife Evelyn asked, still crouched beside Leo." Alex nodded. "Lena used to say, the most important part of any system is the part it forgets to protect. That's where you start. That's where the heart lives." Leo stood and whispered, "That's why Dad stopped building for a while. His heart was busy keeping me safe." Evelyn looked at Alex. "You didn't pause because you were afraid." "No," he said. "I paused because I chose to, and no one ever teaches you that there's strength in staying put." Leo wandered off to the kitchen, leaving Evelyn and Alex in the quiet of the living room. She took a seat on the couch. "You were brilliant in that meeting," she said. "I spoke like a janitor," he replied. "You spoke like a man who finally realized his silence wasn't noble. It was just convenient for other people." Alex sat across from her. "There's a difference between being overlooked and being invisible," he said. "I chose invisible for a while. It was easier. No one criticizes a shadow." Evelyn leaned forward. "But shadows still hold outlines. And you held one for a city." There was a pause. Then she pulled out the folded paper she'd brought. "I found this," she said, "at the bottom of an old internal archive. It's a patent application, dated 12 years ago. Original schematic for a modular subway interface, designed by A. Carter." Alex froze. "I never filed it," he whispered. "You didn't have to," she replied. "Someone else did, and they removed your name 6 months later." He took the paper with trembling hands. "It's yours," she said. "It always was." His voice cracked. "How did you find it?" I started looking where the silence lived. The room went still. "I'm sorry," Evelyn said, "for what the system took, for what people like me didn't see." Alex shook his head. "Don't be. I buried it too." Leo reappeared holding a new drawing. He handed it to Evelyn. It was a picture of her, not in a suit, not with a microphone, but standing beside a train smiling. Behind her was Alex, and between them Leo holding both their hands. "I drew this after the meeting," he said. "You looked happier." Evelyn blinked hard. "Why this scene?" she asked. Leo tilted his head. "Because Dad said you reminded him of Mom. Not in the way you look, but in the way you listen." Alex looked down quiet. Evelyn reached out and touched the drawing gently. "I didn't know her." "You don't have to," Leo said. "You're writing the next part." The words hung there, light, heavy, eternal. Later, as the morning sun streamed through cracked blinds, Evelyn stood to leave. Alex walked her to the door. She turned before stepping out. "I meant it, you know. How about rewriting the room? I'm not just fighting for a system anymore." "What are you fighting for?" he asked. She looked down the hallway, then back at him. "For people who never got a chance to finish their sentence." He nodded. "Then let's finish it together." She smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. Outside, the day had begun, but inside, something more important had restarted. Not a system, not a career, a belief that some blueprints weren't made of lines and circuits. They were made of people, and sometimes it took a child's whisper to remind the world where its foundation really lived. The tunnel didn't collapse. It whispered first. But no one listened. It started with a flicker. A momentary voltage dip on line 6. Just a blip. The kind engineers chalk up to humidity or a rogue relay. But Alex Carter didn't see blips. He saw patterns. He'd seen that flicker before in San Mateo 2 weeks before a partial derailment, and once again in Boston months before a structural beam failed and cost 3 lives. Back then, they called it a coincidence. Now it was a whisper, and he'd trained his life to hear it. The call came at 2:16 a.m. Not from a junior tech, not from Evelyn. From Arthur Delgado, the veteran head of operations, a man who'd seen more steel laid than most had seen birthdays. "Alex, we've got a rumble," Arthur said, voice low. "Not seismic, not mechanical. Something deeper. You need to get to Junction 43. Now." Alex was already pulling on his boots. "Is Evelyn looped in?" "She will be," Arthur replied, "if we live to loop her." By 2:58 a.m., Alex was in the tunnel, hard hat on tablet in one hand, flashlight in the other. Arthur met him by a junction box pale under the flickering halogens. "Sensors showing stable, but the vibrations say otherwise," Arthur said. "And the AI system's been learning its way around the error instead of flagging it." Alex dropped to one knee, placed his palm against the rail. "You feel that he murmured?" Arthur nodded, like something breathing beneath us. Alex stood slowly. "The rail's fine. It's the bed under it. Cracking from heat fatigue. You'll see a full shift in the composite index by morning." Arthur exhaled. "You sure I'm not guessing, Arthur?" I remember the sound of steel begging not to break. He pulled up the emergency diagnostic model on his tablet, his model. The one Evelyn had fought to push through just days ago. It worked. Fault line detected. Load strain at 12.6%. And rising. Alex looked up. "We shut this line down. Now." Arthur hesitated. "You know what kind of chaos that creates politicians will eat us alive." Alex stared at him. "Better they eat headlines than bury bodies." Arthur didn't argue after that. Evelyn arrived at 3:30 a.m. Hair pulled back, boots muddy from the rain-slicked sidewalk. No PR suit, just urgency and truth written across her face. "You found it?" she asked. Alex pointed to the readout. She didn't need a second look. She trusted him. "What do you need?" she asked. "Authority to override the control board. We shut down Line 6 for 48 hours, reroute traffic, and deploy a hybrid patch using my dynamic threshold system. It's fast ugly, but it'll hold." She didn't hesitate. "Do it." He blinked. "That's simple. You think I fought to put you in the room so I could start doubting you now." By sunrise, the media was in a frenzy. Mercer Dynamics shuts down. Major line over unverified concerns. CEO Evelyn Park gambles billions over whistleblower's warning. Janitor turned engineer sparks citywide disruption. And then came the leaked footage, grainy out of context. Alex on camera standing in a tunnel with a flashlight calling for an immediate shutdown. Headlines twisted it. Unlicensed worker shuts down metro line. Anonymous source overrides AI system. Is this the man who crashed the city commute by 10 a.m.? Evelyn's boardroom was boiling. Jason Whitmore led the charge. "This is unacceptable," he snapped, waving the leaked article. "You gave a man with no credentials full override access. Do you know what that makes us look like?" Evelyn stood at the head of the table. "Alive," she said. "That's what it makes us look like." Jason sneered. "You're throwing away our credibility for a hunch." "No," she said, fire rising. "I'm saving our credibility with a man who saw the danger before the algorithm could pretend it didn't exist." Another executive chimed in, wary. "And what if the tunnel never collapsed? What if this was all unnecessary?" Evelyn leaned forward, calm, deadly. "Then we thank God we listened to the whisper instead of waiting for the scream." Silence. No one responded. Because no one could. By noon, Alex had returned to the site. Emergency crews were stabilizing the substructure, and as predicted, the hairline fractures revealed themselves under thermal scanning. One tech approached him wide-eyed. "You really called this without any seismic feed?" Alex just nodded. "The ground doesn't lie. It only hopes you're not too busy to hear it." Arthur clapped a hand on his shoulder. "You just bought this city time it didn't know it needed." Alex looked up at the concrete ceiling. "No," he said. "I just gave it permission to pause." That evening, Evelyn found Alex on the edge of the Riverwalk, coffee in one hand, wind in his face. She stood beside him. "You okay?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "I didn't want this kind of attention." "I know. They're turning it into spectacle, because spectacle is easier than gratitude." He looked at her. "Do you regret it?" "Backing me." She shook her head. "Not for a second." He exhaled. "I spent 10 years wondering if my instincts had rusted. If I was just the guy who used to know things." She reached into her pocket and handed him the latest city report. On the front page, "Early detection prevents catastrophic collapse," and in smaller print, "Alex Carter, credited with breakthrough response system." "You didn't lose your instincts," she said. "You just stopped expecting anyone to believe them." He stared at the paper, then handed it back. "I don't need credit," he said. "I need to know the silence is breaking." She smiled gently. "It is." And then, almost shyly, she added, "You didn't just stop the tunnel from collapsing. Alex, you stopped me from collapsing too." He looked at her eyes, meeting not like opposites, but like reflections. "You were never collapsing," he said softly. "You were just waiting for someone to remind you what you were made of." And in that moment, beneath the rising hum of city lights and the quiet rhythm of passing trains, something between them shifted. Not rushed, not spoken, just understood. The system had held, and so had they. Sometimes the apology you need most is the one you never hear but choose to offer anyway. The platform was quieter than usual. Rush hour had passed, leaving only the faint scent of roasted coffee and rain-dampened coats behind. Evelyn stood alone near Track 7, arms folded, watching the silver train cars hum into the station. Not waiting for anyone. Not catching a ride. Just breathing. Behind her, footsteps approached. "Didn't peg you for someone who loiters in public transport hubs," Alex said. She turned, offering a small smile. "It's strange, isn't it? You can build a whole system and still feel like a stranger to the very place it runs." Alex leaned against the pillar beside her. "You okay?" he asked. Evelyn hesitated. "The board wants to meet tomorrow. Because of the shutdown. Because of the media fallout. They're not mad we saved lives. They're mad we didn't do it quietly." Alex exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "People forget that silence isn't safety. It's just a delay." "They want to question my judgment," she added. "Suggest a transition in leadership." Alex turned toward her. "You serious?" She nodded. "And if it comes to a vote, I might not win." There was a long pause. Then Alex asked quietly, "Would you do anything differently?" Evelyn didn't blink. "Not one thing." He looked away, thoughtful. "I've been in rooms where I didn't belong," he said, "but I never thought I'd see a room that didn't deserve you in it." Her eyes softened. "You always know exactly the right-wrong thing to say." Alex chuckled. "It's a gift. Or maybe just a lifetime of holding my tongue until it started bleeding truth." She smiled faintly, then turned toward the tracks. "You know what hurts the most," she said. "It's not losing a title. It's realizing that some people only ever saw me as one." Alex watched her carefully. "Then maybe it's time to stop fighting for your seat at their table and do what start my own." He shrugged. "Why not? You already know how to build from the ground up. This time, make sure the legs don't wobble from ego." She laughed, a real one this time, the kind that didn't need to hide behind strength. "You make it sound so simple." "No," he said. "Just worth it." That evening, back at the apartment, Leo stood in the hallway, arms crossed, serious as a 7-year-old CEO. "Are you and Evelyn fighting?" he asked. Alex looked up from the dinner table, surprised. "No. Why?" She had sad eyes when she left. Alex paused, then set his fork down. "Not everything that makes you sad is a fight," he said gently. "Sometimes it's just a moment that hasn't found its next step yet." Leo climbed into his seat. "Is that like when you hold your breath because you're scared?" "But also kind of brave." Alex nodded. "Exactly like that." There was a quiet pause before Leo spoke again. "I made her something." Alex raised an eyebrow. Leo nodded and pulled a folded piece of paper from his backpack. Inside was a crude but heartfelt crayon drawing, a tower falling apart, and below it 2 stick figures, one catching the pieces, the other holding the tower together. Underneath it, he'd written, "It's okay if they don't see your strength. Just don't forget where it lives." Alex's throat tightened. "She said she used to forget," Leo added. "So I made her a reminder." The next morning, Evelyn walked into her office expecting silence. What she found was a storm waiting to erupt, board members in suits, PR reps with coffee legal aids looking everywhere but at her. She didn't flinch. She walked straight to the head of the table, set down her folder, and looked every person in the eye. Before they could begin, a quiet knock came at the door. It was Alex, holding Leo's drawing. "I'm not supposed to be here," he said. Jason Whitmore sneered. "Then leave." Evelyn stood. "He stays." Jason turned to her. "This is highly inappropriate." "No," Evelyn said sharply. "What's inappropriate is pretending that we didn't just avert disaster because this man listened when no one else did." She turned to Alex. "You came here for a reason." Alex nodded. "I did." He walked to the center of the room, unfolded the drawing, and placed it on the table. This was made by someone who hasn't spent a day in boardrooms, who doesn't know budgets or optics or political damage. He looked around the room, but he knows what real strength looks like. Some shifted uncomfortably, others stared. And this woman Alex continued motioning to Evelyn. Didn't save this company because she wanted credit. She did it because she knew silence wasn't leadership. It was cowardice. He picked up the drawing again. She didn't hold on to power. She held the collapse. And if that's not leadership, I don't know what is. Evelyn's voice broke the silence. "I'm not here to beg to stay," she said. "I'm here to make something clear." She looked at each board member in turn. "I built this company to serve people, not protect pride, and I will not apologize for choosing lives over headlines." Jason folded his arms. "Then what happens next?" Evelyn smiled, soft and steel. "Whatever helps us remember who we're supposed to be." Later that afternoon, Evelyn sat on a bench outside the building, jacket off, tie undone. The city hummed around her, indifferent. Alex sat down beside her, handing her a soda. "No coffee?" she asked. "I figured you could use something that doesn't remind you of battles." She took it. The vote was split, and one swing away from removal. Then they recessed. No decision yet. Alex looked out at the skyline. "I've learned something," he said. "Oh, that systems don't fail because they're flawed. They fail because no one bothers to feel the flaw coming." She glanced at him. "And people?" "Same thing." There was a pause. Then Evelyn pulled the drawing from her coat pocket, smoothed it in her hands. "I used to think my job was to hold the tower up," she whispered. Alex shook his head. "No," he said. "Your job is to make sure it doesn't crush the people underneath it." She blinked back something unspoken, then asked quietly, "Do you think they'll keep me?" Alex answered without hesitation. "I think you already kept yourself." And this time she believed it. Not because he said it, but because she'd finally remembered where her strength had been waiting all along. Inside. Not in position, not in approval, but in the choice to keep standing even when the ground shook. Especially then. He was never just sweeping the floor, he was sweeping silence out of the system. The morning light cut through the train yard like forgiveness, soft, quiet, and uninvited. Alex Carter stood on the edge of the elevated walkway looking down at the tracks that had once been his entire world. Below, engineers worked under floodlights welding a new modular connector that had come straight from his design, tweaked, yes, refined, sure, but still his at the core. It should have felt like triumph. But what Alex felt was stillness. A strange, breathless stillness. "Do you ever feel like the world's moving on and you're just a shadow in your own story?" he asked quietly. He hadn't heard Evelyn approach, but there she was, coffee in one hand, scarf fluttering slightly in the breeze. "I used to," she said. "What changed? I stopped trying to catch up," she replied. "Started walking at my own pace. Funny thing is, the world adjusted." Alex smiled faintly. "You're better at these metaphors than I am." She leaned on the railing beside him. "Only because I've failed at all the literal roots." They stood in silence for a while, the kind that doesn't demand conversation, just permission to be. Then Evelyn turned toward him. "You never told me what made you walk away from engineering," she said. "Not really." Alex looked down at his hands, calloused, nicked, worn, not by machines, but by survival. "It wasn't just grief," he said. "After Lena died, people looked at me differently. Like I was a broken man with a soft son and a tragic story. Clients stopped returning my calls. My license renewal sat ignored on a desk for months." "You gave up," she said gently. "No," he replied. "I was buried." She was quiet. Then he added, "Sometimes people don't push you out. They just stop inviting you in. And eventually, you stop knocking." Evelyn's voice was low, measured. "Then, thank God the lock's rusted. Because your knock now, it doesn't just open doors, it breaks walls." Later that day, Leo waited outside the Mercer Dynamics building, backpack slung over one shoulder and a look of determined mischief in his eyes. As Alex approached, Leo grinned. "Dad, you're late. I'm 3 minutes early, which means you're late for someone who said, 'Precision is respect.'" Alex rolled his eyes. "I regret teaching you that." Leo handed him a small envelope. "This came in the mail. I didn't open it, but I shook it. Doesn't jingle." Alex raised an eyebrow and tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of official letterhead. He skimmed it, then read it again, then blinked. Leo leaned in. "Is it bad?" Alex handed it to him. "Read it out loud." Leo cleared his throat. "Dear Mr. Carter, based on your recent crisis intervention system analysis and substantial contribution to commuter safety, we are pleased to inform you that your engineering license has been reinstated with full privileges, effective immediately." Leo gasped. "Dad, they gave it back." Alex was too stunned to speak. Not because he didn't believe it, but because for the first time in years, someone else had. Leo wrapped his arms around him. "You're an engineer again." Alex hugged his son tightly. "No, buddy," he whispered. "I never stopped being one. I just stopped being seen as one." That night, Evelyn hosted a small gathering on the rooftop of the Mercer building. No press, no executives, just a few staffers, a string of soft lights, and a quiet celebration for the invisible wins. Alex arrived late as usual. She greeted him with a smile. "Did you read the letter?" He nodded. "Twice." "You deserved it," she said. He hesitated. "Evelyn, I need to ask you something. Anything." He pulled out a crumpled blueprint, his. The original faded, but intact. This was my voice. For years. Folded in drawers, ignored, smudged with coffee and regret. She touched the page gently. "I see it." He looked into her eyes. "But when you looked at me, you didn't just see the lines. You saw the hands that drew them." Evelyn blinked, because they never stopped trembling with truth. They stood there surrounded by people who didn't know the full story, who might never know. But they didn't need to, because something greater had already happened. A man once buried had been unburied not by fame or scandal or accident, but by a woman who refused to let brilliance rot in silence. At the edge of the rooftop, Leo watched the stars. Beside him, Arthur Delgado stood with a soda in one hand offering quiet commentary about constellations. "That one," he said, pointing. "They call it Orion, but I call it the one who stayed standing." Leo squinted. "Why?" "Because life knocks everyone down. The real story's about who stays standing long enough for the night to remember them." Leo considered that, then looked over at his father. "Then Dad's a constellation," he said simply. Arthur grinned. "Yeah, kid. He is." Near midnight, Evelyn and Alex stood alone once more. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd never crossed paths?" he asked. "All the time," she said. "And I would have kept running a company," she said. "Efficient, respected, quiet. And now," she turned to him. "Now I run a company that listens." Alex smiled, then voice low, "Thank you, Evelyn." "For what?" "For picking up the blueprint when the world dropped it." Evelyn stepped closer. "No, Alex. Thank you for reminding me that the quietest men sometimes carry the loudest truths." And just like that, something between them shifted again. Not forced, not planned, just earned. In the distance, a train passed. It hummed like a heartbeat, steady, whole, healed. Sometimes the home we need isn't four walls. It's one person who sees every crack and stays anyway. The apartment was unusually quiet. Alex stood in the kitchen washing 2 mugs while Leo lay on the couch in the living room coloring another one of his cityscapes, his tiny paper worlds where everyone had power and no one got left behind. But tonight, something tugged at the air. Something unspoken. "You think she's going to leave?" Leo asked without looking up. Alex paused. "Evelyn, yeah." He dried his hands, took a deep breath, and sat across from his son. "Why do you ask?" Leo shrugged. "People always leave when things get better. Like when they fixed what they came to fix." Alex leaned forward. "Sometimes people don't stay because they fixed something. They stay because they found something." Leo tilted his head. "Like what?" "Like a reason to start over." His voice cracked just slightly on the last word. He didn't know where it came from. Or maybe he did. Maybe he was already thinking what Leo hadn't dared say. Evelyn was the chapter they didn't know they needed. And sometimes chapters end. That evening, Evelyn sat alone in her corner office. Lights dimmed. Her name still glowed faintly on the glass wall, Evelyn Park, CEO. But it felt like a borrowed title now, like it belonged to a version of her that cared more about control than connection. On her desk was an envelope. Inside the board's final vote. She hadn't opened it yet. Not because she was afraid, because for the first time in a long time she didn't need the outcome to know her worth. A knock. She looked up. Alex. He stepped in quietly, hands tucked into the pockets of his coat like he was afraid his presence might make too much noise. "You always come right when I forget how to breathe," she said softly. He didn't smile this time, just looked at her. "You're leaving, aren't you?" She swallowed. "They offered me a strategic reassignment. Said it was the board's way of acknowledging my service and asking me to step aside without making waves." Alex nodded slowly. "Are you going to take it? I don't know." He sat down across from her, and in the silence that followed something passed between them. Not tension, not even sadness, a recognition that this, whatever this was, had changed them both. Finally, she whispered, "What would you do?" Alex stared out the window at the distant skyline. "I'd ask myself one question. What is it? Does leaving heal me, or just protect me from disappointment?" She looked down. "I'm tired, Alex. I know. Tired of fighting for the right to care." He met her eyes. Then maybe stop fighting and just care. Out loud. The next morning, Evelyn showed up at Alex's apartment. No chauffeur, no press, just a duffel bag over her shoulder and a cardboard box in her hands. Alex opened the door, startled. "You moving in?" he teased. She didn't laugh. Instead, she handed him the box. Inside were dozens of folders, old project notes, handwritten diagrams, letters, things she'd saved from the first time she'd reviewed his background, things she couldn't explain why she hadn't deleted. "Every time I told myself I couldn't trust you," she said, "I went back to this box. Not because it proved you were perfect, but because it reminded me I wasn't either." Alex looked up at her eyes, heavy. "You kept it all." "I kept the pieces," she said, "until you were ready to claim them again." He stared at the contents, then back at her. "What about the reassignment I declined?" "Really?" She nodded. "They wanted a puppet." "I'm not good with strings. What are you going to do instead?" She shrugged. "Something smaller, something louder, something that doesn't need a title to make noise." That afternoon, Leo waited by the window, bouncing on his toes. "Is she coming?" he asked for the third time. Alex chuckled. "You act like she's Santa." Leo grinned. "She brings better stuff." When the knock finally came, Leo sprinted to the door. Evelyn stood there holding a pizza box and a blueprint roll under one arm. "Dinner and redesign," she said. Leo squealed and grabbed her hand, dragging her inside. They spent the evening on the living room floor, blueprint unrolled across the carpet, Leo marking imaginary zones, Evelyn drawing circles and lines and bridges. At one point, Evelyn paused and looked at Alex. "You know what the best part of building is." He looked up from where he was sketching. "Well, you don't have to erase what was broken. You just have to build strong enough to carry it." Later that night, after Leo had fallen asleep beside a Lego tower and half a slice of pizza, Evelyn stood on the balcony. Alex joined her. Below, the city pulsed with life. The subway lines gleamed faintly, running smooth. He handed her a cup of tea. She didn't take it immediately. Instead, she looked at him. "Why me?" she asked. He frowned. "What do you mean? Why did you let me be the one who saw you?" He thought for a long time before answering. "Because you looked at the wreckage and didn't flinch." She turned toward him, her eyes raw. "I don't know what this is," she said quietly. "Us. This thing. You don't have to name it, but I don't want it to fade either." He set down the tea, stepped closer, and in a voice that barely made it past the night, "Then let's build something it can live in." In that moment, nothing grand happened. No kiss, no dramatic embrace, just two people, weathered, wounded, wise, standing side by side, no longer afraid of the cracks between them. Because finally, they had a place to build from. And it wasn't made of steel or systems or titles, it was made of trust, and the quiet, miraculous courage of two hearts learning how to begin. You don't always get to rewrite your past, but sometimes you get to build something beautiful on top of it. The sound of hammers echoed through the community center's steel frame as morning light spilled across the gravel. Alex stood in a high-vis vest and hard-hat eyes, scanning the rising skeleton of a new wing, clean-lined, sustainable materials and reinforced pillars designed from his own reclaimed blueprint. The Leo Carter Youth Innovation Center. Not just a name, a declaration, a place for dreamers, for late bloomers, for kids like Leo and men like him who once thought the world had no space left for their voices. Alex leaned against the railing, watching Leo guide a group of younger kids through a hands-on STEM activity. The boy had confidence now, not the loud kind, the kind that had been earned through resilience, through love, through being seen. "You always build like you're going to live in it?" Evelyn's voice came behind him. Alex turned, smiling. "Maybe because I am." She walked up beside him, dressed in jeans, hair pulled back, tablet under one arm. No title needed. Just presence. She handed him a thermos. "Hot cocoa," she said, "because someone keeps forgetting coffee isn't a meal." He chuckled. "I'm getting better. You're still a work in progress. I take that as a compliment now." She looked out at the construction. "Did you ever think your name would be on something like this?" "I used to think I'd be lucky if my name was remembered at all." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small folded square of paper. Worn, crinkled, familiar. Leo's drawing, the tower, the two figures. "You gave this to me when I was falling apart," she said softly. "And you didn't ask me to fix anything. You just stayed." Alex looked down at the paper, then back at her. "Because sometimes the most radical thing you can do is not walk away." That evening, the center opened its doors for the first time. No red carpet, no reporters, just families, friends, a string of hand-painted banners, and local musicians playing soft jazz under the fading sun. Inside, Alex found Leo showing a retired veteran how to use a 3D printer, while Evelyn gave a tour to a young girl who reminded him of his late wife, curious, stubborn, radiant. He wandered toward a small exhibit wall near the entrance. There, framed in simple wood, was an article titled "The Man Beneath the Tracks," written by Evelyn herself. A first-person essay. Honest, raw, beautiful. Beneath it hung a plaque dedicated to those who build quietly, love fiercely, and lead without asking permission. In honor of Alex Carter. He didn't know she'd done that. His throat tightened. A familiar voice broke the moment. "You look like someone just handed you your heart back," Evelyn said gently. He turned. She was holding 2 glasses of sparkling cider. "I don't deserve this," he said. She stepped closer. "It's not about deserving. It's about becoming." He looked into her eyes. "So what now?" Evelyn smiled. "Now we live the life we once thought was only possible for other people." Later, under the glow of paper lanterns strung across the courtyard, Evelyn gave a short speech. Not about profits, not about prestige, but about second chances. And the quiet power of being seen by someone who doesn't need you to be perfect, just real. "We spend so much time chasing success," she said. "We forget to ask, what kind of world are we building with it? This place isn't just a center. It's a reminder that buried potential is still potential. And sometimes the greatest gifts we can give are belief time and each other." She glanced toward Alex. "And if you're lucky," she added, voice warm, "you meet someone who reminds you that even broken pieces can build something whole." As the crowd dispersed, music playing soft in the background, Evelyn and Alex found themselves sitting on the back steps of the center. Shoes kicked off, watching the sky darken into a sea of stars. Leo had fallen asleep beside them, his head resting on Evelyn's shoulder. Alex leaned back on his palms. "I never imagined this," he said. She nudged his knee with hers. "What love? No. Peace." She looked at him. Really looked. "You earned both." He hesitated, then said, "You know, I used to think building something was all about concrete, steel, equations." And now he smiled. "Now I know the strongest structures are built with trust, with forgiveness, with showing up even when you're tired, scared, or unsure." Evelyn rested her head on his shoulder. "I think," she whispered, "we built something unshakable." He wrapped his arm around her gently. "Not unshakable," he said. "Just unafraid of shaking." Above them, a train passed quietly in the distance. No screeching, no collapse, just rhythm, reliable, like a heartbeat. And beneath that rhythm lived a story not just of redemption, or love, or even genius, but of a janitor who was never just sweeping floors, and a CEO who finally learned how to stay. Together, they didn't rewrite the past, they built something stronger on top of it. Home. Certainly, here's a warm, inspiring, and emotionally resonant outro in English tailored for storytelling videos on YouTube. If this story touched your heart today, let us know. Where are you watching from? We love hearing the stories of our amazing listeners around the world. What part of Alex and Evelyn's journey resonated most with you? Was it the quiet strength, the second chances, the reminder that goodness, even when buried, still shines through? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read everyone. And if you believe in the power of stories to heal, to uplift, and to remind us of who we can be, Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss a story that just might stay with you forever. New stories every week, crafted to inspire, to comfort, and to remind you that the quietest voices often carry the loudest truths. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. We're honored to have you here. Until next time, stay kind, stay human, and keep building what matters.